Hello, everybody. Happy New Year. Welcome to episode 3 of Scar Tissue. I am your humble host, retired Navy SEAL Wes Spence. In the studio here in Virginia Beach, I also have my CEO, Dave Burnham. And we're going to get into our first question. This is to be the heavy topic. So, hey, Dave, you and I have been talking as the CEO for our company. You're intimately, obviously, involved in pre-COVID economy, how it was running. I'd like to get your thoughts on where you thought we were as a company, where you thought the economy was pre-COVID, and then we'll get into, okay, once COVID hit, we'll get into some more questions about how we responded, lessons learned we had, but I kind of like to get your thoughts on just the economy, pre-COVID versus post-COVID, and what the good and bad were for either one, if there is any good or bad for what we got going on now. But anyway, I'll hear your thoughts on it, and the floor is yours.
I'm sure. It's a great question, because if you look back and you go to Q1 of 2020,
yeah,
and you think about where the economy was at the beginning. Now I was talking about January. Mm-hmm. I just traveled to our office in Russia. I'd spent a couple weeks out on the sites there, visiting our guys up in the very north end of Sakhalin Island, which, if you're familiar with that area, we're talking about the far east coast of Russia. If Japan had another island to the north, then that's Sakhalin, and I think it's traded hands actually a few times over the last half a dozen centuries between the Japanese and the Russians, whoever happened to be there at the time. But yeah, it's not uncommon at this time of year to have minus 40 below, so that's a whole nother story. But to say the least, we were very active. There was a lot going on, and whether your audience knows or not, we were very involved in the energy industry. So, whatever was going on, whether it was oil and gas, whether it was natural gas, renewables, around the world as we tried to solve the world's energy needs, that's basically where CAVU would deploy.
Right.
And it's not always in the nicest places in the world.
Nope.
They're beautiful in their own right. I mean, there's nothing prettier than Siberia on a sunny day when the snow's on the ground and the animals are out, but also pretty challenging.
Yep.
So I was up there, and then I traveled from there to our office, our partner's office in Norway. Everybody was very upbeat, very exciting. We'd come out of kind of a real downturn, if you will, in the oil prices, which had really put a damper on the economy in terms of whether they're going to go out and develop new resources or new reservoirs and bring that to the economy. We're pushing towards renewables, and we could argue whether that push is too fast for the ability to keep up with the needs of the world. Can we supply that manufacturing need and that transportation need right now with renewables? Pretty debatable. It's actually right. There's really not much debate. If you think about it, you've really got to do a transition with both, right? And over the next 20 to 30 years, hopefully we can solve that problem. But the U.S. had become energy independent. We've become a net exporter of oil and gas.
That was our first time I think it was our first time, right?
I think it was the first time ever.
Yeah.
Frankly, ever since my memory, when they've been keeping records, is we've always been dependent on foreign oil and foreign natural gas, for the United States. We always exported some, but the net effect was we were an importer. And 3 years ago, 2.5, 3 years ago now, we became a net exporter, which really gave us the ability to have a little more leverage worldwide on what people were going to do with renewables and what people were going to do in terms of safety in the environment in general with oil and gas drilling. So it was pretty neat. And we were competing, and we weren't just a net exporter, we were competing with Russia.
Right.
A massive part of their GDP is energy. And the Middle East, the OPEC nations, and it includes Russia now too, but the United States was actually going to surpass the output of those countries. So, things change here, political parties change, the focus changes, and now we're in the midst of COVID. I guess we're in the midst of the COVID recovery, in my view.
Yep.
So we took a big downturn. We took a massive hit in 2020. I'd say January, everybody was super optimistic. February, you're starting to hear things about COVID starting to hit in different places, in China, and obviously I was overseas at the time. I was in Europe at that point when President Trump at the time shut down travel to China.
Right.
And now we're hearing a lot about cases in Italy, and it's kind of scary stuff. There's a lot going on down there, and I'm still in Europe doing some business development, working with our partners, and I remember talking to my wife on the phone. She's like, "Hey, this stuff's starting to spread. They may shut down travel to Europe." And I was like, "Yeah, I only have 2 more days. I think I'll make it home." And by the grace of God, I did. But very soon after that, the president shut down travel from the European nations. Now, that didn't stop American citizens from getting back in, but you don't know what you don't know at that point, and they could have just as easily said, "Hey, no more air travel." I'm not that young that I don't remember, when 9/11 happened, which was another major crisis in the U.S. history. But I mean, they stopped air travel, just shut it off.
Right. Yeah.
And where you were was where you were going to be for a while. So those folks that are over 50 or so, remember that fairly well. So yeah, started to get those feelings in February, and March, basically things were starting to shut down. All right, and most of our clients were calling up and going, "Hey, we're not going to be able to continue to utilize CAVU on our sites because you can't travel back and forth, and we're not sure if we can get you home. And we're not even sure if we can get you over to, we're working in Siberia, northern Norway, we're offshore Norway, working out in the West Texas deserts and all kinds of different places. We've been down to West Africa. So you certainly, as a CEO, don't want to get your people stranded in some of these remote locations because the support infrastructure there is not, let's say, what maybe we're accustomed to in the U.S.
Right.
So some very Spartan living in some places. But anyway, we were able to manage that. Unfortunately, the economy, as we remember, if you don't have to, 2 years ago, April, the value on the futures of a barrel of oil was negative. And if I'm not mistaken, it was negative 20 or 30 there for.
I think 35 is the lowest hit that I remember anyway.
For a couple of days, and you're sitting there going, okay, so people can't give away oil. They can't even pay you to take it because of the, and it was we were kind of a product of our own production at that point, and all of a sudden, demand just disappeared.
Right.
So demand disappears. We're producing all this oil. All of a sudden, there's no place to put it. Every storage tank is filled. People are pulling tankers out of mothballs all over the world and filling them with oil and parking them at anchor. So that's where you end up with negative prices for oil. So but energy kind of always precedes the rest of the economy. So as that started to happen, businesses started to shut down, and I think we all remember the phrase 2 weeks to flatten the curve. Yep. I don't know about you, but by my watch, we're going on about 90 to 100 weeks, right. And looking at the local stats, we're at the highest point of COVID cases now. COVID cases, yep. At this point, and there's a lot of reasons, it doesn't mean nearly as much as it did. Right. Certainly when we were first starting to see this thing hit the U.S. But yeah, to answer your question, the economy. In our view at CAVU, we had actually invested a lot of our resources into the growth that we saw coming in 2020. And based on what we had done in 2018 and then 2019, we were ready to roll. And Q1, even with the initial slowdown, if you will, during late February, March of 2020, Q1 2020 was the biggest quarter that we've ever had at CAVU. So, nothing really had happened to change our minds until Q2. And then it was an immediate crushing blow where we just literally shut down the economy.
Yeah, I remember just like an off switch. I was just flabbergasted going, wait a minute, what? And so, pretty good segue. So you get the good comparison between, pre-COVID and post-COVID, economy macro, if you will. Talk about, because one of the things that really that impacted my thought process was how you had mega stores were able to stay open, right? But small businesses, especially a business like ours, which relies explicitly upon face-to-face interface, on-site coaching, in-person coaching. And so we literally had put all our eggs in one basket. Right?
Yeah.
But it was a great basket. It was like, because there was nothing, I remember just nothing but positive things coming out of early 2020. And so talk about, if you would, once COVID, once the real, the 2 weeks to flatten the curve, once that was shown to be, a gross understatement, if you will, how we as a company responded to the challenge of still surviving and ultimately, hopefully, given this quarter, thriving in an environment where in-person coaching and the oil industry can't be it can't be the only thing you have.
Well, yeah. I mean, you said it. So we were so reliant on face-to-face interaction with our clients. I mean, CAVU is it's a coaching, training, leadership development company, and our entire lives have been spent out on the deck plates, whether you're a SEAL or whether you're a fighter pilot working with the squadron guys or you're running a ship. It was deck plate leadership, talking to the sailors, finding out what their needs were and where they wanted to go, and how you help them shape their path to get to the future that they wanted. So that's kind of the model that we had in our heads. Now, one of the best things that we ever did, and whether it was by sheer luck or whether it was some presence looking down on us, but we hired a lady a few years ago named Dana and Zana, and she's probably she is one of the youngest folks in our company, but she's a marketing director, and she looks at things in a different model than we do because she came up in the social media generation, and she'd been beating us up for about a year prior to COVID, going, "Hey guys, we need to get more present on social media." And we're like, "Sounds good, Dana, that's your job," and make it happen. And she did a good job. But when COVID hit and we couldn't travel anymore, she's like, we need to step this up. We need some videos. We need to be out there and be present and be, providing value remotely to our clients, whether we're making revenue or not. We still need to be present and show that we can still help them out with their needs. So I said, okay, that's great. I got no place to go. So I started going, okay, well, I can do a video. And I pulled out my iPhone at the time, and I sat it there, and I started going, okay, so I'll just do a selfie video. This is how they do it. And I started talking into the thing, and I looked at it, and I was like, okay, I don't want that to go any further than this room right now. And one of the biggest things about, I think, leadership and it really doesn't, anybody can lead in good times. When it's all sunny and everybody's singing and dancing, it's easy to be a great leader. When you face a company-killing crisis, and make no mistake, COVID, we're not completely out of the woods, but it's a company-killing potential crisis. So, we had to do something. And, one of the biggest things is, I always say, listen to your people. Communicate your vision, shape your vision around your people, but listen to everybody. Don't just go to the well with the people that you're used to, that you're comfortable with, that think like you do. Really listen to some of the folks and the younger folks, because they're going to have a lot of different ideas, and they're going to have a different view on how to reach out and touch people and show value of the company. And boy, I'll tell you, just listening to Dana really got me thinking, and I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to let her down. And so I started doing what everybody does these days, right? I went on YouTube and I was like, okay, how do you make a selfie? and I stumbled across this young guy, and I think he at the time was probably 29 years old, Parker Walbeck, and we should put a link to this guy down in the video in the comments section of the info. But I found this YouTube video of a young guy, Parker Walbeck, that had created an online course, and it was called Full-Time Filmmaker. So I'm looking at it, and it was pretty expensive, like $700-800. But you could do a money-back free trial, 30 days. And I'm thinking, what's this young kid is he gonna be able to teach me how to do this? I'm pretty old, kind of set in my ways. I started watching it, and the first thing he does, he kind of, he describes, hey, this is This is if you want to be able to create a video that's going to, capture somebody's attention, keep their attention, and get a point across. This is the course for you. And so I started watching it, and he talked about, some of the basic equipment that you need. And it wasn't an iPhone. If you really wanted to do this, you had to go out and buy some, the cameras, the lighting, the sound, the microphone. Yeah, so making sure that you had a minimum level of equipment that you could produce a decent video that looked okay and it was pleasing to the eye, and it was also, you could understand what people were saying. So I started going through it, and it's about, I want to say 200 videos in this course. One of the things he did, which was great for me, being a former fighter pilot, I got a short attention span. So he maxes out, he targets about 6 to 8 minutes in a video.
Yep.
Get a point across, get in, get out. If the person wants to go back and look at it again, they can do that, and I did a bunch of times. But you get a main learning objective in each video. It creates a lot of different videos, but I really liked the format. And as I'm going through this, he sold me on it. He's like, okay, I can do this. I went out and I got a camera, the basic unit that he said, hey, this is the baseline level, and started figuring out how to use it. Some would argue that maybe not quick enough, but I spent about a month. I didn't really talk to, I told Dana, but I didn't tell anybody else in the company what I was doing. I started going into this course, and after a month was over, I was like, you know what, we can do this. So made the initial investment, a couple $1,000s, and bought enough of the baseline equipment so that we could film a video. And at the time, we had the former commanding officer of Top Gun working here in the company, and just a great American, one of my closest friends. Actually used to flew with him in combat. So just an amazing guy, and he jumped in it with me and kind of helped me. He took it from the training side, being a Top Gun guy, that's all they do. So he's like, okay, I'll develop my kind of baseline, the course. We'll fill out the learning objectives for basically what we're going to call it Leadership Pro, and we're going to start, building our index of all our learning objectives of everything that we do when we're out on the sites and we're visiting our clients. In the old days when we could travel, we're going to do it all in video. It's like, great. Well, right about this time, Parker Welbeck, full-time filmmaker, producer, introduces a new course, and it's called Course Creator Pro. And I was like, perfect timing. And he's like, yeah, he goes, I got so many inquiries about full-time filmmaker that we just decided to make a course on making a course. And it was like, something, dropped down from above, and it's like, boom, okay, this is going to help you walk your way through it, not only from the production side of it and kind of getting your scripts and understand the learning objectives and how to film those and bring in animations when you need them and when you don't need them, but also the commercial side of it. What do you charge for a video course? Yep. How do you market it? How do you tell if your marketing's doing well? So, long story long, Parker just an amazing course, and he's got quite a business going out there in Utah right now, just doing that kind of thing. And I think it really helped us out, and it gave us, and not only that, but Wes, it gave us something to focus on when we couldn't do anything else. So one of the first things I thought of, and with, I shouldn't say me, Dana and I thought of, was let's get as many of the coaches involved in the filming of these courses, behind the camera, put a bunch of old crusty Master Chiefs and a few retired trigger pullers there, and get them comfortable sitting on the camera and really describing what they would describe to a person.
From a coach's perspective, that was one of the hardest things I've ever done, was write those scripts, but it was good in the fact that it gave me an opportunity to really dive deep into what I'm teaching, because I've been doing this for since 8.5 years now, and I've been on automatic. I hate to say it, but a lot of it is just on automatic and going and do your thing and you get out. This really helped me do a deep dive on the why, and into at a higher level of all the aspects of leadership, all the aspects of team resource management, continuous improvement. All of that helped me as a coach really improve. So that was I think an amazing byproduct of that effort, as as sucky as it was, it was. I mean, just sitting down there and looking at a blank computer screen, trying to write a script about, hard conversations or whatever you want to talk about. That was a big challenge, but it was a great thing to do, though. Anyway.
No. I think every single one of us, certainly myself, was pretty intimidated.
Oh yeah.
Not just writing the script. We can write a paper, a point paper. We've been doing that our whole career. But sitting in front of the camera and having a permanent record of your inability to communicate. It's funny. You get better and better at it the more you do it. I shouldn't say you get better, but you get more comfortable. Trying to make a point and where to put the right emphasis and your timing and things like that. So it's actually been kind of fun, and it was really an all hands on deck effort. You think about it. Our office manager, operations assistant, Denise Herron, I mean, she was normally helping us with our training events, internal training, making sure everybody was equipped for their trips and all the stuff that they needed. And then now she's behind the camera, and she's working sound, and she's working audio, and she's working lighting. She's actually, was instrumental in setting up the studios that we have.
Right.
And really kind of figuring out the mechanics that go behind it as well. We were working on the content, she's working on mechanics. I got the operations VP is studying scripts and writing. It was really neat. To the point, and we've always kind of sort of not really joked. Haley Wiseman, probably the smartest person in our company, and probably the one central point, the cornerstone that kind of keeps us all on the right vector. She's been training us for a decade now, almost, I think. And, we're like, hey, we need to get her on camera and get her out here. And she was a little bit hesitant about it. But you know what? That lady's got more lessons learned about all the different things she's done in terms of, getting us to different countries and not getting us in trouble with immigration, with taxation.
Exhibit A.
Oh my God!
Going into stuff, yeah.
Just figuring out immunizations and how do we get in and out, and so she's done a lot of things with from her home office in Tulsa, wherever that happens to be on any given year. She's been taking care of people in West Africa, in Alaska, and, in Russia, and Venezuela, or wherever they happen to have to go. So it's just been kind of neat. That was kind of a slip of the tongue. Brazil. I didn't mean Venezuela. We don't go there.
Right.
At least not yet. Maybe soon.
Something you didn't tell me. Yeah.
But yeah. So it's just. I think it's an all hands effort. I think one of the things, and this is a big leadership tenet, and it always has been with me, is you always want to promote your people, and when you take ownership in something, even as big as a company, you take accountability for the failures, but when something goes well, you want to promote your folks up and show that they're the value that they bring and how they've really taken something to another level. And I think one of the things about this Leadership Pro, our online course, is it's really allowed us to really show the depth of talent and the depth of our bench here at the company. So that's been really neat. And I'd probably take it one step further, and scar tissue is probably a good term for this, but being willing to take calculated risks. When you're not bringing in any revenue, and you're going to go ahead and go, okay, I'm going to push the I believe button, and we're going to invest in something that we have no idea if we can pull it off.
Right.
Other people have done it, but we have never done it. Right. So you really, but like I said, we did enough study, we did enough background investigation, and we saw the concept and went, okay, we've got folks that can make this happen.
And plus, really, trying to do something not face-to-face, we were faced with no choice in a lot of ways. I mean, we had to solve something. And so that motivational factor has got to play a big part. You and I were talking about it, is that we had become a little bit of complacency about the old ways of doing business. And so, because we talked about doing this, about a year ago. Like you said, Dana brought the social media stuff up, and we're all kind of yeah, whatever. But it's the forcing factor, and to me, and the ability to rally all hands on deck really made a huge impact, and a positive impact on actually making a success out of Leadership Pro, in my opinion. Is that
No, I 100% agree, and I think you know, as a leader, if you're not aggressively bought into something and you can't, you know, demonstrate your enthusiasm about it, you're not gonna get people to get excited and get behind you on anything. So, so I really had to not only understand what we were going to do, but also be able to communicate what that could possibly mean for the company. And and it really did open up some doors because, you know, like you said, we were kind of at the sink or swim. If we didn't know how long COVID was going to go, and honestly, it's gone a lot longer than I was even on my larger end of timelines has gone, you know, to this point. But thankfully, it's had some peaks and valleys in it. And so, you know, we've been able to capitalize on the peaks and then weather out the valleys. So, like I said, a lot of that is, you know, everybody's pointed in one direction. And then, you know, frankly, we got a lot more presence on the internet. We got a lot more social media attention. And a lot of our clients that, you know, they're like, man, you guys are doing amazing. You're doing great work. And I watch all of your different videos because they bring value and I'm learning lessons.
Yep.
To the point where, you know, a major training company, you know, global company in Copenhagen said, hey, we like it so much. We want to get behind you on this. We want to invest and we want to show you some of our capability to bring you to a whole new level. Right. And, you know, and that's rely on new tech. And, you know, again, that's one of those calculated risks. Do we bring in another company? What are their intentions? What do we know about them? And, you know, over a few month period here last summer, you know, I really got to spend some quality time with the CEO, Torben Haring of Rely on New Tech, and you know, I can really tell, you know, watching him work with his people and how he communicates and what his vision is and how well he communicates that vision. I kind of went, you know what? Yeah, there's some risk. There's some risk because we're a small company, they're a massive company, but we're aligned. We want to go the same direction. We want to get into this digital age where we can touch more people around the world simultaneously instead of just having to travel to one site here and one site there. We want to broaden that horizon. So yeah, we joined forces and it's been pretty exciting from that point as well.
Right on. So it's not just the partnership, the online presence. The third thing I think probably I'll touch on before we close out this part of the segment is the different industries we're looking at too. Because like I said, all our eggs are in the one oil and gas basket for a long time, and now we're spreading out, right?
Yeah, exactly. You know, once you get comfortable with an industry, it's pretty easy just to kind of hang out there and just talk to different clients within that space. I'll tell you that one of the things that really forced us to open up the aperture a little bit is, you know, the shutdown in COVID, the lack of ability to travel because oil and gas is very remotely distributed around the world. We had to focus here at home and, you know, looking around, what kind of industries suffer from, you know, big time crises with human error and where do we look where there's a lot of accidents and injuries and fatalities? And, you know, you start watching the news and paying attention and doing a little bit of data searching. And heck, we hurt more people in construction in the United States in 1 year than they hurt in the energy sector in a decade. And it's all, you know, right here at home. And then you look at chemical manufacturing and the consequences of a human error in that environment. So yeah, there was a lot of different things. And then, you know, we all watched the news during the summer of 2020, you know, with all the protests and, you know, after the George Floyd issue there with him being murdered. So, you know, and the public uprising and the challenges that law enforcement had to deal with. Right. One, to not repeat the mistakes that they made that created the problem with George Floyd, but two, to protect businesses and people and property and lives, you know, around the country in that environment. So they were under a tremendous amount of pressure. So, you know, we reached out and we've had the ability to, you know, really show some value and some positive movement in the law enforcement side. So a lot of different things that we've kind of probed into now that you know, we've kind of been moved out of our comfort zone with energy.
Right on. Okay. So with that said, that was our first heavy subject. All right. So let's move on to the lighter subjects. Okay. So the first thing we have up for that, and I spoke to it at the beginning of the segment, but I've been to 48 different countries. I've been to 45 U.S. states and all of our territories. I'm not sure you've been widely traveled as well. Okay. We all got our own favorite places to go. I kind of want to get your thought on your. I'll give my thoughts up front, and I'll get your thoughts on where you've had some good times. When you're out traveling and everything. For me, my favorite countries to go to. I'm going to get favorite countries first, and we'll do U.S. states second. But my first one is Austria. My family and I were stationed in Germany for 3 years, and about 4 hours south of Stuttgart is this wonderful place called St. Anton, and it's got, for winter sports, it's got 4 different peaks. Each of them are about 3,700 meters high. It's a snow trap in that area. You have, at that time, it was 10 years ago, 12 years ago, God. You have about 217 kilometers of groomed runs, right? You have unlimited off-piste, which is how I broke my left foot going off-piste there. But anyway, that is one of the most quintessential Austrian experiences you can possibly ever have. And the Hotel Gridelon there, it's in a town called Pettinoy. It's a 4 to 5 star rated lodge, but you wouldn't know it. When you drive up to the front, little bitty lodge. I think at the time they had 36 total rooms. And what really struck me about the place was there's this old guy. I'm driving up, and there's this old guy out here washing the windows, and good knob, just saying hi. And come to find out, that's the owner. So you talk about, and that's typical. That's pride in their work, their pride they have in their business. And when the owner of a 5-star hotel is washing his own windows and greeting his people, the guests coming in. We went there for New Year's Eve 1 year, and amazing. The restaurant there is top tier, but again, you feel like you're sitting in here. And it's just a good family place. It's about 10 kilometers from the ski run. They have shuttle going back and forth every day. I don't know. It's just one of those magical areas. In the summertime, it's the same kind of thing, but it's a lot of hiking. But for winter sports, it's unrivaled, in my opinion, anywhere in the world. So that's one of my favorite places outside the country. So what are you? What's a place you consider your favorite?
That's funny, Wes. You've named one of the places in the world that I've never been. I've never been to Austria. So heard it's beautiful. Yeah. Probably saw some scenes in Band of Brothers from where you're talking about. I'm not sure. Right on. But I thought about. I've been asked this a lot of times because I do travel quite a bit. So I'd say there's 2, and they're vastly different. But Thailand is one of the places that I was able to go to, and I'm trying to remember back, but probably it was on one of my deployments on the USS Constellation when we pulled in there in '97, I want to say. First time I went over there, and the first thing I noticed was the sheer friendliness of the people. Yeah. If you made any attempt whatsoever to try to speak Thai, they just absolutely loved you. And most of them spoke enough English so you could communicate. But I just remember that, and the food, and I just love the food there. But and the landscape, it was just a very tropical. Well, obviously that's where it's located, but not that far from the equator. But very tropical, very. It's a Buddhist country, right. So very warm and greeting people, and so I just made a point that the next time I was going to be over there, we're going to deploy in that area. I had to bring my wife over because she had traveled in Europe, and she'd met me on deployment a few other times, and so she'd been that direction, but never on the other side of the Pacific. So. Brought her over there. She absolutely fell in love with Thailand, and not only the food but the people. And she's got long blonde hair, so that kind of stands out in a crowd in Thailand because let's face it, most people have dark hair there. So all the time, man, we're just infatuated with this beautiful blonde woman, and she's pretty friendly and outgoing. So she just wanted to talk and shop and do all this other stuff and hang out on the beaches. So just an absolutely beautiful place. So. When we got home from that deployment, actually, I continued on my deployment. She went home. I got back and she's like, you know what? I want to get a Thai exchange student. And we're going to have, and the girls are getting ready to go into high school, and we're going to have this exchange student. She's going to be a couple years older, so she'll be a good big sister. It'd be good for her. So we did. For about a 6-month period, we had this young girl from Thailand came and stayed at our house, and her mom was a store owner from southern Thailand, way down south by a place called Nakhon Si Thammarat, which is actually a very it's rural. It's there's not a lot of money down there, and people just everybody works and everybody contributes to feed the family, and they're very happy, and that's the way they live. And her mom and dad were separated, but her dad was on the other end of the spectrum. He was an attorney for the king. Wow. He lived in Bangkok, and that was his life. So one of the biggest cities on the planet, alive all night, is her dad, and then her mom. And I got to meet both of them on subsequent deployments to Thailand. Got to meet her dad in Bangkok. We went out to dinner one time, and then another time I got to meet her mom. So, and she still refers to Pamela and I as mom and dad, her American mom and dad, and we keep track. She's got a couple of kids now, and it's just kind of neat. Yeah, so Thailand's always had a warm spot in my heart. But real quick, I'll just tell you the second one.
Sure.
And this is only because I'm a history buff.
Sure.
But I've had the opportunity to go to Moscow quite a few times in the last 6 to 10 years because of the work we're doing with CAVU, and we took on a business partner, which was talk about taking calculated risks. So we have a Russian company, and I've got a Russian business partner for CAVU, one of the nicest people on the planet, and he runs a translation company out of Moscow. So lived there his entire life, younger guy, probably 45 if that tells you anything about my age, but just
You're in good company.
An amazing dude, and just going around Russia, in Moscow, the history that's still alive there, and going down to Red Square and Lenin's tomb, and all the museums that are around there, and just seeing that stuff, and talking to the local people that that they, of course, they don't get to see a lot of folks from America over there, on average. So they love talking about the history and what they did during World War II. They're very proud of, and making it through that. So yeah, Russia's that's kind of a personal favorite, and Moscow in particular because of the history there.
Right. Yeah. My second would be Oman. And
Really?
Same kind of thing as far as the history, but also because it's such an alien, it's not alien, but it's just such a different culture over there, but it's also a very warm and welcoming culture. So that the whole trip that we did with the company over there, when you see the juxtapose, the Muscat, the main city there, with the malls and the modern amenities that are available throughout. But then you get out into the countryside we went up into right by the empty quarter in Saudi Arabia. You get camel herders. I mean, the old ways of doing things, and then realizing that the whole just the thousands of years of history that's there, and so that country really. I fell in love with it just right off the bat, and so that's one of those places that I would definitely go back in a heartbeat. One, to experience, like I said, the city life that Muscat and places like that offer, but getting out into the hinterland, the landscape, from the mountains to, I was on a 200-meter high dune. Right, and I have a photograph sitting on my phone of taking a recording off this dune out the back of the facility we're staying at up by the empty quarter, and the scenery, the people, the sheer how different everything was there, really captured my imagination in a lot of ways I didn't quite expect, and so yeah, I think that's going to be one of the ones I definitely go back to and explore a lot more in the future.
Yeah.
So with that, okay, there's your foreign countries. How about U.S. states? What's your favorite place and/or area in the good old U.S. of A?
Wow, again, I've got a couple different favorites. There's 3 places that I absolutely love in the United States, and anybody asks me, hey, what should I see? I have a lot of foreign friends that go, I'm going to the United States, what should I go see? And I say, well, there's 3 places that I think really capture the U.S. and kind of our mentality and why we are the way we are, and the diversity that our country really offers. And one of them's right where you live now is Charleston, South Carolina. I absolutely love that city.
Yeah.
It was on our top 3 places to move when I retired. Virginia Beach won out for some other reasons, and that last move, my wife got to pick. The Navy picked the 16 moves prior. She got to pick the last one. So, and we're very happy here in Virginia Beach. But Charleston, South Carolina, it really captures the essence of Southern living in the United States. And you know, you want to talk about the history. We could do a whole hour on the history of Charleston. But
my older, we were walking by the park in downtown. You can see Fort Sumter from there, right? And my older daughter, she goes, "Dad, what is that out there?" And I said, "That's Fort Sumter." And she's like, "The Fort Sumter?" I was like, "Yeah, that's where it all started, right there." So the history there is really is amazing. I definitely concur with that.
She might have been sitting on the very spot where they were shelling it from at the start of the Civil War. But just neat stuff. But the other one I would say is Santa Fe, and Santa Fe, New Mexico, has a charm in and of itself. And if you've never been there, I would just probably couldn't describe it to you. But it's very eclectic now. You know, a lot of arts and lots of music and lots of really neat places to visit in terms of old Southwest culture, and everything that goes along with that. But you know, really, that was kind of that was a hub, if you will, when you know, when we were expanding into the West. Whether we did that the right way or not, you know, is up for discussion. But the bottom line, Santa Fe was just, it's got an amazing history of the Old West, and all the people that went through there, and you know, whether it was cattle herders or it was cattle rustlers, you know, or you know, banditos and Comanches, and you know, you name it. So just a neat place, and probably my number one of my 3 is Jackson, Wyoming.
Oh, okay.
And
I've never been there. Been meaning to go.
Got to go there.
Yep.
As you approach Jackson, you cannot, if you're human, you can't not be awestruck just by the visual imposition, if you will, of Grand Teton.
Right.
I mean, that mountain is just staring you right in the face, and it's just massive, and it's beautiful, and it sits right there over Jackson Lake, and then you got the little, you know, the country cowboy town of Jackson itself, which has really tried to maintain a lot of its history. And you know, you got the buffalo walking all around, and arches made out of caribou antlers. And it's just a really neat place. And you know, I've taken my kids there a couple times, at least my daughters. I haven't brought Luke out there yet, but it just offers a lot, and it's a gateway, and you know, it sits right there near the southern gate of Yellowstone, which is probably one of the most beautiful national parks we have. And so yeah, Jackson, Wyoming.
Right on. The for me, because I left the state, and for my current, I agree with you as far as Charleston. That's why we moved there. But as far as you're right. You have people asking you, hey, if I'm going to go to the United States, where do I go, right? And for me, San Diego and Central California will forever maintain a soft spot in my heart for a lot of reasons. One, San Diego, as a West Coast SEAL, I mean, I know that area by the back of my hand, and you know, everything from Coronado, where I lived for damn near 20 years, all the way up in through Ocean Beach, La Jolla Shores, the most amazing beaches out there. Getting to Black's Beach, you got that's world-class surf goes on right there. Then you get into my favorite part of the whole area, North County of San Diego, from Cardiff by the Sea, Encinitas, Leucadia. The best, coolest, funky little town you could ever possibly be a part of, and then getting up into Carlsbad, best surf ever up in there. And I will, regardless of where I live, I'll visit that area probably a month to 2 months out of the year. October and November is probably the best time of year to go there, and because crowds are gone, the water's still relatively warm, surf is great. It's getting that winter swell coming in, and there's really just not much more sublime than an evening or a morning surf session out in those areas. So that Southern California, in that respect, will keep a soft spot in my heart. Moving a little bit north into Central California, starting from Santa Barbara, going up to Monterey, I will lay that a marker down and say there's probably no more beautiful spot on the planet physically than that area right there, going in through Big Sur and all that stuff. So, and that's usually where I tell people to go. If you're going to go do one drive from Santa Barbara, get Highway 1, and just go north up to Monterey, and even all around Monterey Bay into Santa Cruz. There's just so many cool, neat little places there, towns. One of my favorite ones, Cayucas. It's just north of Morro Bay. Right there on the beach, again, great surf. You can see where my theme is, right? So I keep following those kind of things, and I love the whole vibe that you have on the coast and people that are just out there to have a good life. And so that whole swath of Central California is one of the big ones for me. The second area outside of the California would be around my home state of Arizona. If you go into Central Arizona, into Prescott, over into Sedona, it's the history there of the old Wild West, the largest, I think one of the, if not the, at one point it was the largest. It's probably been overtaken since then, but at one time Prescott Rodeo was the largest rodeo in the United States. Still a huge draw. You got people coming from Phoenix and all over the country. You got to do the rodeo there in Prescott. You have downtown has a Whiskey Row, so all the old bars are still there from the Wild West. They just been remodeled and updated and everything, but they're still there, right? And so you have that square. If you want to know what Arizona is like, go there. It's just because you have the whole mix of a big libertarian streak, if you will, and so that's some places if you want to see one good culture, great visual scenery because you're around 7,000-8,000 foot mountains outside of Prescott. Then you get down into the desert, into Sedona, out into Phoenix, and just a tremendous area. And so if I ever had to move back to outside of Charleston, Prescott would be one of the definite places I'd be thinking about because I'm close enough to San Diego to go surf, but I'm in an area that is more home to me, in other words. Yeah, so those are my two for the United States anyway. All right, so shifting back out of the light stuff back into the heavy. So let's see what we got here.
Hey, before you get into the heavy, though.
Oh, okay. Oh, you got one more. All right.
You just reminded me of something that just tickles me to this day. Yeah. But you've seen these internet memes that come out, and God bless her. She's probably one of the youngest congresswomen in the U.S. But Alexandria OcasioCortez. There's a while there was a bunch of memes coming on her. You just reminded me of just outside of Prescott is where there's one of the biggest meteor impact craters in the United States. Yep. And it's pretty deep. It's like
it's by Winslow actually, but yeah.
Yeah. What is it? It's like a mile or two across.
Yeah, it's
like
huge.
600 feet deep.
Yeah.
But pretty significant, and it showed this meme because it's got the little building on the side of the crater of Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez going, "Wow, look how close that meteor came to that building." So whenever you talk about Prescott, I just think about that and I just crack up. It'd be funny no matter who said it.
That's awesome.
But yeah.
Whew, all right, let's shift back to the. Let's get serious, Dave. All right. So the challenges of, at least in my opinion, the challenges of COVID. Not only were medical challenges because you just couldn't to get information on it and how you can take care of yourself was something that. I never seen anything like it, in other words, and so that's one challenge, and we're getting through it. The other one, though, for me, I was really shocked at how readily people either try to take control and, in my opinion, kind of exceed their constitutional authority into how they were trying to deal with the pandemic, and how easily people just kind of willingly gave up their rights, right? And so I kind of want to kind of get a little bit into the Constitution, what it means between you, maybe me. We'll talk about where the appropriate role of the federal, state, and local governments are, and in respect to the Constitution, and just kind of see where we're at as a country. You have the intent. One of the things one of my goals for this year, and I'm about a quarter of the way through it, is to read, I should say, the Federalist Papers. Because it's one thing to read the 14 pages of the Constitution, read the Declaration of Independence, read the Bill of Rights, yeah, that's all great, but what was the intent of the founders, right? And so I think that's one thing I'd recommend anyone do is take the Federalist Papers. They're not easy reading because there's a lot of dry stuff in there. But it is and does give you a sense of what they meant when they established and wrote the Constitution. I'll be straight up front with everybody and with my audience. I got a very wide libertarian streak, so I'm just to the outside of the Articles of Confederation when it comes to what I think the rule of government should be, right? So I'll be very upfront with everybody on that. But because my theory is, if you have to make a choice, it should always come down to the decision that gives everyone greater personal freedom. That's just my own philosophy on it. And so to understand what the Constitution is, what the proper role of government is, how people took that document and tried to do what people may honestly think was the right thing to do with respect to response to COVID and how we're trying to get through it as a nation. Yeah, let's just start talking a little bit about that. So what's your thoughts on the role at the federal level when we started? What do you think was the right responses? What was the wrong responses? Because we are looking at it's 2020 hindsight right now. We kind of I think a pretty good understanding what we need to do. In your opinion, what's the role of government? What they should have done? What they're doing right? What do you think they can do better? If you have any thoughts on that, I know I do, but kind of know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to unpack there.
Oh yeah, I know. I just threw yeah.
So let me take it in this context.
Yeah.
I personally am, well, like you, served for nearly 30 years, really bought into what it means to be an American and what it means to live in this great country.
Yep.
And I look back on the founding fathers, and you saw what they were dealing with and what they had just gone through with the Revolutionary War, and the big thing is, they did not want tyranny,
right,
and they wanted, representation, and those are the big things, but they were also super smart and forward-thinking in how they set up the checks and balances and the balance of power, and
brilliant, in other words,
brilliant, and so just amazingly, the crystal ball that they must have had. If they could look back now, I don't know what they'd think, but just the role of Congress, and how that and the role of Congress as it relates to the executive and to the judiciary. I think the vision of the founding fathers is truly under assault at this point, because all the competing interests and what people see as moving forward to one person is completely different than what it means to another. And you mentioned the libertarians, and I'm a huge supporter of that line of thinking. But I think we always need to go back and go, hey, we had 3 co-equal branches of government because we needed checks and balances. You did not want anybody to be a king, So, and this doesn't have anything to do with just the Biden administration or the Trump administration. Right. This goes back as long as I've been alive,
oh, yeah.
and less than that, as long as I've been paying attention, which I would say probably started somewhere at the end of the Carter years, but certainly when Reagan came into office.
For me was a big change of because I saw the how Carter ran it and then how Reagan was running it, and that was probably the most impactful transition that's our generation. That was you actually could be proud to be an American again, And if for anyone who out there in the 70s, they at the Naval Postgraduate School, when they wanted to study Vietnam, they couldn't study Vietnam directly because the emotions were still too raw, and so they had to study the Revolutionary War, because it's still a lot of the similar things that Ho Chi Minh was doing within Vietnam. It was a very easy study, but you took the emotion out of it. Yeah. When you saw how George Washington and founding fathers conducted their Revolutionary War against Great Britain, that's what they used, and so they had to, because it was just so raw. And so for me, when they had the transition to Reagan, it was amazing how overnight we felt great to be an American again. I mean, that was my experience anyway.
No, it's true, and I wasn't around when Kennedy was president, but I do remember my dad, my mom talking about all the neat things that were going on during the country in that period. And then we seemed to slip into a kind of a darker age when we went into, to the Vietnam era that you just brought up. But, and we really never started to come out of that until, at least in terms of national pride and really being gung-ho about being American again until the Reagan era, and some of the things that happened. And certainly, Barack Obama gave a tremendous sense of pride and where we were and where we had gone and where we were at that point in terms of a people and how we took care of each other and looked at each other in that prism. So, there's been a lot of progress. We're at such a pivotal moment because of COVID, and I think that was the root of your initial question. And there's an extreme motivation or movement to throw things out, and one of the things that we teach in a micro level, what we do at CAVU, and we talk to leaders and supervisors on their jobs and go, hey, everything that the expectations that we have when everything's going right are the exact same expectations we have in terms of procedural compliance and how you do your job and what safety precautions you take are the same when things go bad.
Right.
When you're under stress, that's when you need to fall back on the rules and everything that you've come up with. And it's a very easy time to just go, well, that's not important right now. I'm not gonna put my goggles on, or I'm not gonna put my gloves on, or I'm not gonna, wear my hearing protection because this needs my attention right now. Well, you broaden that out to the country and you go, okay, COVID, shut down the economy. We got this. Let's change the way we vote. What? We don't know what's going to happen in the streets, so let's take away the Second Amendment because we don't, people don't need hunting rifles that look like army rifles, and just a lot of things that don't make that much sense start to make more sense under crisis, and you start to get a lot more momentum, if you will, to change things that really under normal circumstances we would never even think about changing.
So with that thought in mind, one of the best sayings I've heard, I don't know who to attribute it to, but I like it. It's called process is greater than outcome. Because there is, you'll hear people, this is what really kind of chats my hide, the fact that we haven't declared a war since World War II. But how many wars have we fought, right? I mean, the war powers of Congress, it's there for a reason. They have to have skin in the game. And that really came to light in the brilliance of the founders in making that clause in there, was the fact that, as we rolled into Iraq, whether that was right or wrong, looking back on it, I'm like, that was the dumbest decision ever. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. It's 2020 hindsight. We rolled in. How much more would we have done, or how much smarter would it have been if we had to convince Congress to vote to go to war? Because then everybody would have skin in the game as far as like a representative. They turned on Bush that quick because there was no, hey, it's his baby. He took. You said that the separation of power is supposed to have co-equal branches. Basically, Congress just divested itself of that responsibility to the president. So now you got an imperial presidency. In fact and name to certain, and was able to direct divisions rolling into another country without Congress having a say on it, other than authorize you to use the use of force. So that's just an example of how I think we've gotten away from the Constitution. If we follow the process, people say, "Oh, it's hard." Yeah, it's supposed to be hard. It's like in any of the Bill of Rights. If you don't like the Second Amendment, change it. Well, it's hard. Well, yeah, it's supposed to be hard to change the Constitution. That is your Constitution. That's what your foundation's laid on. It's like trying to change the foundation of your house. So this is the things that I hope that as parents get a little bit more concerned with the education that our kids are getting, because that's where it really starts with. You have to have the educated populace on what that document means, what the processes are that you got to go through, why you have an electoral college, and why we're not a democracy, we're a constitutional republic, and why that is advantageous to a straight-up democracy. Again, that's why you read the Federalist Papers. That's why you read what the thoughts of the Founding Fathers were. you have processes that you need to go through, or you should go through, or like you said, then any emergency, you just throw that document away. I mean, that creates, that's the foundation for rebellion, and you start doing things like that. But if everybody understands that you have processes you need to go through, this is just my opinion. If you have processes you got to go through, and you have a situation come up, you follow that process, and you get through it. That's just what you do. And I think we need to get back to that as citizens, to make sure that we understand what the document means, what our responsibilities of our elected representatives are. They're supposed to work for us, not vice versa. And I think they've gotten away from that. Anyway, my opinion. Any other thoughts on that?
No, like you said though, we talked earlier about the diversity of this country and why it's so great. It's also one of our Achilles heels, I firmly believe. But the reason our founders set up our voting system the way they did, they put it in the hands of the individual states because it is the United States of America. It's not just America, right? It is an aggregate or a group of 50 individual states at this point, and if you don't respect those state governments to decide what's best based on the region, the demographic, the economics of their people, then you've really taken away a lot of that autonomy that's made this country so great, right? When you start to federalize something and then you start to change the balance of power within the federal government, you really run a high risk of getting into that power shift where you run the risk of being in some type of a tyrannical situation, where one small group wields a tremendous amount of power over the entire rest of the population, and that's where you get into trouble.
Right.
You don't have to go very far back to the 20s and 30s. You talked about a highly educated population. Germany was a very highly educated, very industrial population. But when you pit a large segment, first you create a lot of fear, and just general anxiety in a population, and then you pit that against a common enemy. Pick a segment, you name it, and you can get a lot of people to do a lot of really crazy things in the name of something bigger than themselves that that you wouldn't normally ever think of short of that crisis. So no, I'm 100% behind you on that.
Right on. Okay, so that was our heavy topic. So we didn't solve a lot there, but I think you got our opinions out there. I think before we do close it out, I reinforce everyone out there, take a look at the documents, understand them, understand where we come from as a nation. We're the most diverse nation in history that is also one of the most peaceful. And so people are clamoring to come across our southern border for a reason. People are clamoring to come here from around the world for a reason. And if we don't keep that reason for people to come, then we kind of cease to exist. I think it's amazing the diversity in this country, because everywhere we talk about where we've been in the world, and you can see the world here. It's here, right? And I've never seen more proud Americans than some kid from Nigeria. I've never seen more proud Americans than some kid from El Salvador. I've never seen more proud Americans than Ian from Australia, the guy that told me to, challenge yourself, mate. Okay, so we are, my family, my history on my mom's side, I'm directly related to the Dalton gang, right? So I had Irish bank robbers as part of my ancestry, right? So we all have a crazy background, but that's what makes us great as Americans. So we got to really come back, I think, as a country to reject some of the temptation it is to throw out our founding documents, get back to them, get back to the basics, and reestablish that ethic. Okay, all that said, closing out, everyday carry. We all got favorite shit we like to carry every day, right? We got a whole table here of different stuff, and that's why I made the joke about bringing a gun to a knife fight, or a knife to a gunfight. So this is one of my favorite things, just before we get into it. I carry this everywhere. It's a moleskin notebook, blank, totally blank on the inside, so you can kind of modify it to what you want. This is my baby. This is my brain. Everything that I come up with that's even half a decent idea comes down and out of this thing. So if you don't journal or you don't take notes, think about it, pick up a little moleskin and start writing. That's the first one for me. What do you got there, Dave?
Well, you know, Wes, in the last decade, they've come up with these things called Apple Watches.
That's
So you get an idea, you can go to the notes and take.
Man, it's got to be written. I still drive a manual transmission car, for God's sake. Anyway.
No, it's kind of funny. So, yeah, you talked about everyday carry, and we were actually talking about the Constitution.
Yep.
You know, back in the military, unlike yourself, I only carried a weapon, which, you know, is nothing more than a tool when I was flying in combat. We literally, you know, as a naval aviator, as, you know, a guy running a Navy ship, you just didn't, unless you were part of a security detail, you had no need to carry a weapon, and they certainly didn't want us to or expect us to in any environment other than when we were flying over, you know, enemy territory. But I'm a firm believer in people's right to carry arms. I think it's not just about hunting. What you're going to hear, you know, why do you need an AR-15 to go hunting? Well, you don't. But the Second Amendment was never written about hunting.
Hunting is a privilege.
Hunting's a privilege. It's a great sport.
It's
a lot of fun. It'll teach you how to become one with nature. But I think, you know, when you talk about, you know, the right to bear arms, it's really about being able to defend yourselves against tyranny and being able to have a well-armed militia. So, you know, we could debate that all day long.
Sure.
But from a personal perspective, you know, as a father, you know, as a, you know, an employee of a company of people that I care dearly about, I think, you know, we've gotten to a point where, you know, and this again, in my opinion, probably more than anything, is we've ignored mental health for a long time, and you know, it kind of goes back to the Reagan era, but I think maybe that was one of the biggest mistakes made during that administration, was really how they looked at mental health, and that has really not gotten any better since. To some degree, to a big degree, it's gotten much worse. Like you said, we've fought a number of undeclared wars. We've put a lot of people in harm's way. We've got a lot of, you know, former sailors and soldiers and airmen that have you know, definable mental issues that they're struggling with. We've got a lot of folks from, you know, professional athletes to special forces that have suffered traumatic brain injuries. We got a lot of folks out there.
That's why I made my nonprofit foundation.
You're a nonprofit foundation.
That's what we do. Yeah.
You know, so you know, you just got to be careful, and you know, in terms of everyday carry, I'll be honest with you. I went out and got my concealed carry permit a little over a year ago, and decided that I was going to be prepared for the worst, and, you know, hope for the best, but always be prepared for the worst. And I never wanted to be in a situation where someone that, you know, that I care about, or somebody that can't defend themselves, is in a position where they're under a threat, where they might, you know, suffer great bodily injury or even death. And I was there to do something and couldn't. And so I just kind of made that decision. Had to go back. You know, did a lot of training in the Naval Academy and the years after that on how to handle arms, but I haven't been doing it for, gosh knows how many years, well over a decade. So I went back to school on it. You know, I carry a small concealable, but this thing's been cleared and safed, and you can see in there that there's nothing in it. Clips up here on the table, but if you want to know what I prefer, this is, you know, and of course, I carried a SIG when I was in combat, flying the F-14 and the F-18. So the 6 Hour, when they came out with the P365, I thought it was wonderful. When they came out with the 365 XL, I thought it was even more wonderful. So that's my carry of choice. And
just for everybody's edification too, you know, Dave and I had talked about that, and I almost bought that one as well. I like the fact that it's got not only iron sights, but you can take it and you put an optic on it. It's readily adaptable, and you can take that plate off, put an optic on it. As we old people, I mean, it's that front sight. That's my biggest downfall right now. Is my front sight's not crisp anymore, and my arms aren't quite long enough. But I went ahead and so Dave's got the XL. model. I got this irregular P365. The reason I did, because if with a 10-round magazine, this is just for me personally, 10-round magazine, I can put it in a pocket. And I liked having that option. That's just a little bit too big, but it also still has its own 12-round magazine. And with that, you get a full 3-finger grip, and it's almost like as good as that. Not quite, but it's almost as good a grip. And but the only thing for me I had to do, I obviously shot a lot throughout my career. But the one thing I had to change on my grip stance with the 365 is if I did my thumb on my strong hand, if I ride my thumb in a usual spot, it rides right here on the slide release. And so if I'm like that, and the slide won't walk back, and so I had to change my thumb to keep it on the outside, so it's away from that, from that little switch right there. So the fact that I know when it's not got any more bullets and I got to reload. So, but yeah, other than that, have you had any issues with that at all? Jamming or anything, or any failures to feed, or?
Knock on wood, I've probably only put 1,000 rounds through that thing total.
Right on.
In my entire, ownership of this weapon, but it's never locked up. I've never had an issue with it, and it really feels good, in your hand to shoot. So, this is one of those urban carry holsters, lock leather.
Yep.
Really like this thing because one, it's comfortable, and two, you got leather instead of plastic against yourself.
Yeah, so I was going to show you. I got a Kuziak. I like Days because it has that lock. This doesn't have a lock in it, but it kind of sucks in the gun. Yeah. And so we had tested it, and we were trying to shake it. Don't worry, we don't have to worry about testing it right now. But I'm like Dave. I like the leather just because I'm a sensitive guy, and I like it on my skin. So anyway, you can take that forever you want. But it is, so either one of these holsters are really good. For a knife, for an everyday carry, I got the Spiderco Native 5. I don't know if you've ever heard of this. Spidercos are obviously very, very famous. I've benchmade. I've looked at even the Christopher Sabenzas. Those are those are Bugattis of lockback folders. But this one, it really, for me, it's under 3 inches. The Spiderco mechanism, I'm going to do that again. That's like my happy spot right there. So if you open that, is happy place right there. But the beauty of this blade, this one, I got it a few years ago. S35 steel, powdered steel, super steel. The edge is amazing. I use the Spiderco sharpener. If you ever use any type of sharpener, that's one of the best ones out there. The jimping on it is great. The choil has a little bit of jimping on it as well. And so you can, if you want to get, choke up on that blade a little bit and get into delicate work, it's just and it's thin. You can see really, really thin. It holds an edge real well, really thin, and so it's great to carry every day. So that, with my 365 and let's see, the Ridge. You ever seen these Ridge wallets? I
have one.
Oh, okay, yeah. So you carry everything in there. You got a little place for your cash. It keeps it's RFID proof. So any guy that wants to try and steal some of your information, it's protected. But yeah, just a great way to kind of carry a wallet in a really compact package. See here. The other thing that I recommend this carrying everywhere because it's legal everywhere in the world. So just a flashlight. This one, Surefire EDCL2-T. It's a great flashlight. It has a 2-way switch on it, so if you lightly touch on it, it's you can see at night. But if you want to get the full brightness, I think it's 600 lumens right off the bat. So it's an LED bulb as well. So they're indestructible. They blind you. It's got the little ridges on the front. So if you blind somebody, smack them in the temple, then use your cardio to get the hell out of Dodge. That's what I tell my daughters to carry, is things like that. And I carry this thing everywhere I go, everywhere in the world, just because, again, it's legal everywhere. And it's just a flashlight, but at least it'll get you out of something in dire straits.
You joke about bringing a knife to a gunfight, but as I listen to you talk and watch the enthusiasm that you have, I quickly realize that this probably brings me up to about 1/5 the capability you have with a flashlight and a knife. You don't even need a gun. I
don't want to be taking rounds about 20 yards away. That's the only thing I want to do. The other thing I was going to show on a knife was this is when I go out into either hiking or hunting or anything in the outdoors. I got this, Tops doesn't make this anymore. I wish they did, but it's just a good general purpose blade. It's called the Borderline. I forget when they stopped making it, but again, it's about just a good 5-inch blade. It's 154 cm steel, so it's good, really good corrosion resistance. This one's really sharpened up good right now. Again, good choil up front, good jimping on the back. The handle, take that, you can feel the handle on it. How comfortable that is. It's one of the most comfortable handles I've ever found on any knife I've ever picked up.
That's got some heft to it.
Oh yeah, it's about a 1/4 inch thick, and so I use that on all my deployments into Afghanistan. Really just for you want that thick blade because you're breaking open boxes, you're cutting rope, you're doing all kinds of stuff with it, and that thing has been tested, big time with just general chores. But it does everything from chopping vegetables and getting your gutting a game animal to everything else, and it's really passed the test of time.
The weight of this thing, I feel like in a survival situation, if you needed to dig a hole, you could dig it with this thing.
Oh yeah,
and never even scratch it.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
Yeah, you can, and so you can, it's good on the normal grip. It's also really comfortable on a reverse grip. So yeah, it's one of the best overall blades I've ever come across. From a non-custom standpoint, Tops does a really good job as far as like blending a bit of production with a little bit of custom work, and this is just a good general purpose blade.
Now, is that something that you could travel with on an airline, or
Sure.
Could you take it with you?
Yeah, it all depends on local knife laws. Now, you can travel with it. It all depends on what you can carry and how you can carry it. Again, this is what I take out into the woods. So if I go hunting, if I go hiking, it's fully legal anywhere you want to take that to. Walking around New York City, nah, I wouldn't be doing that with that. This though, you could. I've walked in Japan with this under 3 inches, so it's it's pretty legal, almost pretty much everywhere.
Will that go through airport security?
Not on my. I check it, but
gotcha.
yeah. Although I had a knife similar to that, and I forgot it was in my briefcase, and I was in going through where was I? It was Tokyo. I was going through Tokyo.
Yeah.
And the customs guy opened up my case, and he looked at me. He did this. I was like, I literally went, and he's like, put it back in there, and he let me go.
Oh, you're lucky.
It's like, hey man, but anyway, it's kind of funny things you get through. The last couple things I'll go through here right quick. If you want a good little speaker, the Bose Mini Link. I carry this. Another thing I carry everywhere, especially on the trips that I take for working out or presentations. If I got a presentation, the thing is amazing. It's waterproof, and so it's quite survivable and great sound. So, with that said, close it out, Dave. We've got one last thing we'll talk about is our logo, and we'll say goodbye to everybody.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm kind of gone retro today, so I've got the old logo since we launched our new design about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. So this logo, I've always been, a huge lover of the mountains and the mountain skyline, and as a pilot, CAVU. The perfect day is, clear air, no clouds above you, perfect visibility. But it's really tough to have a logo that depicts clear air. So it's basically nothing. So so what depicts that in my mind? Well, I grew up on the coast of Maine, and anybody that spent any time on the waters off the coast, my dad was a commercial fisherman. As you come back in on a clear day, in the wintertime particularly, all you can see is Mount Washington. In the background, this giant snowy peak that just stands up, kind of like the Grand Teton when you go out to Jackson, Wyoming. But that's something that's always been in my head, and there's a couple smaller mountains right next to it that would be snow covered as well. So this kind of was emblematic of that, and what a beautiful day, because you couldn't see Mount Washington unless it was CAVU. My wife spent a lot of time kind of figuring out what I had in my head and how to put it into a logo. So this has been our logo since the early days of CAVU. But now, as you see, I mentioned Dana before, and Dana's been really working hard to capture what CAVU really means, and how she can better describe that in a pictorial form of a logo, and really what she's created here. As you can see, it's on a shield, which is a little bit of a nod, or tip of the hat to our military background, and where we bring most of our life lessons learned is from the military. So, what better backdrop for the logo to be on as a shield? And then she gave me a little bit of a wink and a nod with the mountains, and kept those in there basically presenting that clear sky, beautiful horizon, mountain backdrop. But it also has a kind of an upward vector on it, which is, I like to say, it's our CAVUs true north, our compass here on the wall.
Yeah, yeah.
But our true north is to always try to improve. You can always improve on every day, and you can never be at your best if you just accept where you're at. And no matter how good you are, your environment changes on a day-to-day basis. Unless you're measuring yourself against every day, you're not going to know where you are that day and where you need to go to get better in the future. So
Challenge yourself, mate.
So that's where it comes from. So challenge yourself, mate.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Again, Happy New Year, Happy 2022. Hit the like and subscribe button, please, and continue to be fans of us, and hopefully we show value to you. Have a great day.
Thanks, Wes.
All right.